Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach and the Contractor podcast, sponsored by Newton Scott and Associates and Newton Scott Signature Homes. We're really excited to be able to offer this podcast to the world. A lot of you have been wondering about what Jeff and I are doing in the real estate world, and we're excited to be able to talk about that here on the podcast. So let's just jump right in. So how's your golf game, Jeff?
Well, I'm definitely enjoying getting to play more than I was playing whenever I was coaching, especially in the fall now as the temperatures are coming down. It's really nice. I know you and I have a golf trip coming up here in a couple weeks. Looking forward to that. I thought that playing more golf that I would get a lot better, and unfortunately, I've proven that the more you play doesn't always mean the better you get. But I'm definitely enjoying. I love to play, nice courses. Obviously, a nice thing about building up in the cliffs and being a member up there is to be able to play those courses. So definitely have a good time with that, and look forward to some good rounds of golf here with you this fall.
Well, you certainly have encouraged me to play more. I've been so busy the last however many years, building the businesses, and I haven't been able to play. Prior to kids, I played all the time, and I just quit playing. It was probably quit playing for about 15 so years, and so it's been really fun getting back into it. I know we've been playing, but I will say that I don't like that you beat me right now. I think you've beat me the last two times we've played. I think you're up on me a pretty good bit right now. I was like, I just choked, but I'm going to be ready in
Yeah,
October for our trip. So,
yeah.
I,
I know. I've seen your shots. I know what's coming. A great thing about golf now, kind of transitioning from coaching into business, is there's a lot of networking that can go on the golf course, and especially what we're doing in real estate. Being able to meet new people out on the golf course. There's already been some really good leads that we've gotten and opportunities, whether it's with some of our banking friends or people that are some of our vendors. Just getting opportunities to meet people and play golf is something that I definitely enjoy.
yeah, it's a really good point. Since you encouraged me to join the Cliffs, and I know we bought those lots up there, and we're getting ready to. We've got creative founder design studio Jared Moore designing those plans for us, and real excited. And we've got the Button Bush the build with awesome mountain views up there, and then it'll be really exciting to be able to have an excuse to go up there, check
Yeah,
on those jobs sometimes, and then maybe get in around after after doing a little work. But um, yeah, golf is a crazy sport. Like you said, it doesn't matter how much you practice. I mean, I know when I was playing all the time, I could go out and shoot in the 70s, and then I could shoot in 100. In fact, I had my best round ever in the same weekend. I think I played on a Saturday, shot like 100 when I'd have been consistently shooting in the 80s, and then I decided I was going to give it a break for a little while, and then on Sunday I got invited to go play up a course up in Cashers, and I ended up going and shot the best round of my life. So like back to back, days, shot the worst round I'd shot in a long time, and then the best round I'd shot. So it's crazy, but it's still fun to be able to get outside, and those cliffs courses are unbelievable. Springs, I love the Springs. That one's really close to Clemson. That's where we're doing all those spec homes, and of course you got the vineyards right there close by. I played the vineyards a couple weeks ago. Took my my oldest daughter's boyfriend up there and a buddy of his, and we played. And that course was in phenomenal shape, and it's probably the best I've ever seen it. The rough was hard. The rough was about that thick,
yeah,
and so if you hit it in the rough, it was hard. I still haven't figured out how to hit out of that, but the greens were perfect. They were rolling great, and so I think those houses that we're building up there are going to be awesome, and having 7 golf courses that the buyers can be a member of after they buy. I mean, buy one of our houses is going to be really awesome for them, and it's going to make it a really good selling point. Um,
Yeah,
so
no doubt. I mean, I've always enjoyed the Cliffs, even whenever I was here the first time at Clemson and coaching. Every once in a while in the spring or summer, I'd get to go up. But what's been really cool now, being back and being in real estate and development, I got the opportunity to really get to know Jim Anthony through the Longview project, and I mean, it's really incredible, just kind of his vision when he started the Cliffs, to kind of where it is now, and the current ownership, South Street Partners. They also own Palmetto Bluff down in
mhm.
Bluffton, but they have done an awesome job. They've really put a lot of money into the amenities, into the course, and I mean, I think that's one reason that you and I are planning on building houses up there and some spec homes, because there's a lot of really good things going on. The last thing that I'll say about golf, that one of my new goals that I started maybe a year and a half ago, is I want to play as many of the top 100 courses in the U.S. And fortunately, I've played one of the hardest ones to get on, which is Augusta National. I actually got to play that twice while I was coaching at Clemson, which was an incredible experience. But I'm currently at 8 of the top 100, so I have a long way to go. But the funny part of that is, I thought whenever I kind of set that goal to, play the top 100 courses, in my mind, being a top 100 course just meant that it was like really nice and a great experience. But what I found out is one of the key kind of ranking components is the difficulty. And
Mhm.
so I'm shooting some really high scores. I got to go play Shinnecock earlier
Yeah.
this past year. And I mean, it was very, very difficult. One of the most, I mean, I think the wind was blowing like 35 miles an hour. There's this one par three that I think all of us were hitting 3 wood trying to hit into the wind, and you couldn't
Mm.
get the ball to stop on the green. But yeah, I'm slowly kind of knocking away on some of those top 100 courses, and looking forward to hopefully getting up to Wade Hampton sometime this fall. That's one I got to check off my list. That's not too far from us.
Yeah. Um, I think I'm going to adopt that same goal. Now that I'm getting back into golf, I have a brother has a very similar goal. So yeah, and I mean it's just fun to go out and experience the different golf courses, and I mean it's fun to travel and do all that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So let's talk about how you and why you're doing what you're doing now. What's exciting to you about the Newton Scott venture, and why you're doing it, and kind of what's your motivation behind everything.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed real estate. Obviously, whenever I was coaching, I didn't have a lot of time to spend, doing development or building or those type of things. But in the off season, I would always, my wife and I did some remodels on some condos that we had down in Destin, and we did maybe 3 of those over about a 6 year period, and just trying to learn as much as I could. My wife always said, even while I was coaching, she said, "Eventually, you're going to do something in real estate one day." And while I was coaching, I mean, I couldn't see anything further than just coaching the rest of my career. And then whenever I finished there at South Florida and kind of had a reset, and with young kids at the time, Savannah was 7 and Hunter was 2, and I really just decided, hey, I'd like to maybe step away from coaching, be able to spend more time with my kids and family, and then really be able to kind of scratch that itch in real estate, knowing that we were going to come back to Clemson. I mean, Clemson is home to us. Both Sarah and I met here at Clemson, and we knew this is where we wanted to come back to. But having all the great things around Clemson, and then having Lake Kiwi and the Cliffs and Reserve right here, within 30 minutes of Clemson, it was just a great area to get into the development and real estate phase. Then also, not many coaches get to come back to the place where they coached previously, and their alma mater, where I went to school and played ball here at Clemson. To be able to come back to your alma mater and be able to do business with a lot of the relationships, that I was able to cultivate over 12 years. So that part's been really fun. I think for me, one of the things that I knew early on was, okay, I'm coming in this out of 20 years in coaching. Experience does matter, and so I really needed to get connected with someone that shared the same character, values, integrity, those things, but B, had the experience in real estate and in development. And you and I knew each other just a little bit, and maybe through some common friends. But we were eating lunch quite often. I'd run into you at one of the local restaurants here for lunch, and then eventually just said, "Hey, can we visit a little bit?" And one thing led to another, and but I think you're,
And I'll
yeah,
admit,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but I'd be like, well, he's not going to be here long. Somebody's going I've admired how you just kind of you said, this is what I'm going to do. I want to be back here. I mean, you could have gone and coached probably a lot of different places. I think anybody would have snatched you up. I mean, two national championships under your belt, and and then I'd see in there and I'd be like, oh, he's gonna be, this is short lived. I probably
yeah.
won't be seeing him here, very long. And then you really bought in and committed to it. And
Yeah, there's a song that I really like by Luke Combs, and the title of it is "Front Door Famous,"
yeah,
and it really just kind of talks about coming home and being famous to your kids and being there for your kids, as opposed to maybe just being on a big platform or trying to see what you can do from a profession standpoint. But I think that the biggest thing for me is I loved coaching or enjoyed my 20 years in coaching, but there's a huge time commitment for that. And for the majority of my coaching career, it was just me and my wife, Sarah. But once we had kids, I just love the opportunity. Like right now, I'm getting the opportunity to coach my daughter, Savannah, who's 10, coach her 10U softball team. And I mean, just things that I'd never thought that I would be able to do. I've coached my son's soccer team and t-ball team. And so, real estate and doing that allows some flexibility to be able to do things like that. And, we'll see what kind of comes in the future. But, right now I'm really, happy and at a good spot, and really enjoying. I'm learning a lot. I mean, I think there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of different avenues in business, especially in real estate and construction development, all those different things. And I'm really excited about the things that are going on now, the things that are coming. And I get excited every morning whenever I get up, because there's going to be new opportunities, new relationships to kind of cultivate. And you never know what's next. So right now I'm really happy doing that.
yeah. So for those that may not know, tell everyone like what you're doing, and then you kind of touched on
Yeah,
how we kind of got connected, but then and then I'll chime in
yeah,
on how the connection is.
sure. So whenever I got back to Clemson in January of 2023, I decided to start a custom building company called Haven Valley Custom Homes, and really we're a luxury boutique builder, mainly building in the Cliffs and Reserve area. We're also going to be doing some projects in Cashers next year, but very high end, very just beautiful homes. And we're working with some really good architects. MHK is an architect out of Greenville that we're working with on several projects. So I've got a really strong team there. One of my project managers is Will Spires, that punted for us at Clemson. So it's awesome to have Will. He's doing a great job. He graduated Clemson with a degree in construction science, and he's doing an awesome job for our Haven Valley team. But really for me, that's a very kind of nuanced, smaller market. And I really wanted to be involved in the Clemson area, and there's going to be a lot of development overall in the upstate of South Carolina. And because of that kind of nuance of the Haven Valley kind of model and market up there, it really limited what we could do. And so I wanted to be able to build some houses, that were in a little bit better price points. And anytime you go into something where you don't have a lot of experience and there's a lot to learn, then you have to pay some tuition. So I definitely paid my tuition for my first year or so there with Haven Valley. And so as I was thinking about potentially opening up another construction company that could build houses kind of in that mid range of kind of that 750 to $2 million that I really couldn't build with the Haven Valley team. Really, instead of starting that from scratch, that's really where I kind of came to you, and I've been watching you kind of from afar, and we actually did talk one time whenever I was at South Florida. You called me about some of the Clemson transfers that had come down to South Florida, and I think they
Oh yeah.
might have owed you some rent or something. So I do remember having that
Yeah.
phone call back then.
Yeah.
If you'd have told me on that
I never
phone,
got it.
no, I might have told you you probably weren't getting it, but I don't know. But if you'd have told me on that call that 2 years later I'd be back here in Clemson with you doing real estate, I don't know that I would have believed you. But basically, that's what really led me to come also have my real estate license. And your company is very well kind of vertically integrated with your brokerage team and your construction team, and so that's really what led me to want to have start having conversations with you, and that's ultimately where we're able to get together on the Newton Scott and Associate real estate team, and then Newton Scott Signature Homes.
Yeah. Yeah. When we first started talking about things, I knew you were just learning as much as you could. It was amazing the meetings I remember you would be telling me about, and the people you could gain audience with, and a lot of the bankers and developers and brokers in the area. And as we talked, it kind of became more and more clear that a partnership made the most sense. We do, as you mentioned, we're a vertically integrated company. We do development, construction, sales, and we have a property management division. And we've built a lot of student housing over the years, and built a lot of single family. I mean, that's where I cut my teeth. I grew up in the single family construction world, and this is what I did when I was in college. Worked in college for a brother that was doing single family residential construction. So, and then we had sort of talked about how, look, there's this niche that needs to be capitalized on, and that's the homes in the 750 to 2 million-ish range. They're you've got the national home builders that are really crushing it right now because they have the ability to buy land, big tracts of land, and they're doing these big developments. And then you have the super high end stuff like you're doing with Haven Valley, but you don't have anybody that is doing that, or you don't have a lot of builders that are doing that in the middle. And so we're able to sort of capitalize on some of the economies of scale that I have with my vendor network and our subs and everything, and sort of use some of those same principles um, that you use with being able to do project based type construction and development, to be able to offer a really good product at a good price point. And so, and then obviously you couple the sales part of our company, and that's well established. We've been selling for a long time, with Jessica Williams, and our sales team has done really well over the last however many years. So um, all that coupled together. And I mean, we didn't want to be competitors. We felt like we were better suited to be partners. And so far it's proven to be a good partnership. I think we ground each other out, like voice of reason for each other. So it's as far as I'm concerned, it's worked out really well, and we've got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline that I'm really, really excited about. So we've got quite a few houses under construction, and I mean, we're selling them about as fast as we can build them. And that our only problem is we can't get, we just taking us a while to get some of these out of the, or getting them teed up and ready to go. But we're starting to gain a lot of momentum, and a lot of the phones are ringing, which is really cool, which is what we thought would happen. So super excited about that.
Oh, that's great. Maybe just touch on a little bit. I know, especially a lot of our Clemson listeners, there's not a lot of land in Clemson. And so one of the projects I'm most excited about is going to be the new neighborhood that we're going to be building, that we're starting now in Clemson. So maybe just touch a little bit on
Yeah.
that.
So that one's been on the radar for a while. A parcel at the end of an existing neighborhood called Heatherwood. So we're calling it Heatherwood Phase Two. It's in the city limits of Clemson. We're going to have 14 lots there. We're in the process of clearing and grading that. We're putting in all our erosion control measures and our detention pond and everything before we can start really getting after it. But so we're in that phase. We're hoping to obviously be building houses the first of the year. That's kind of the goal. we've got to get it graded and get all the infrastructure in place, get the water and sewer in, and the curbing and the paving, and houses are going to be in the 750 to 950 range. There's only 14 of them. We've got Jared Moore with Creative Founder Design Studios designing those plans. Real excited about that. So we'll have 5 different plans, but about with 14 different, actually will end up being more like 14 different plans because they'll all have different features and elevations and everything. So super excited about that. In addition to what we're doing up at the Cliffs and at the Oaks on West Old Pendleton Road.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some good projects coming up. Um, just talk maybe a little bit overall. Your experience as far as going to Clemson. I think one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that you're a Clemson alum and that you've really kind of made your business right here in this Clemson area. We're sitting in your office, which is downtown Clemson, and so maybe just give our listeners just a little bit of quick background of yourself.
Well, I am an unapologetic Clemson fanatic. I grew up here, so I'm a rare native of the area. The Newtons go back. I'm 7th generation. My kids are 8th generation. My grandfather was a rock mason turned builder, and my dad was a builder developer, and so I grew up in the construction industry from the time I was a little kid. I mean, I think I stepped on my first nail when I was like 2 or 3 years old. That's how you learn the hard way. Not
Right.
say don't step on any nails. um, but yeah, so I grew up, on job sites. I mean, I was literally driving nails at a very young age, and I mean, of course, they being the youngest of 4 boys. We have I have an older sister and a younger sister too, but the boys worked a lot growing up, and I was always the gopher. So like, go get this, run to Old Norm's and pick this up. This is before Lowe's,
Yeah.
like Old Norm's, the local hardware store.
Yep.
That's an old school thing there. But I learned how to do all the grunt work, and then eventually, I was very hands on, just doing a lot of construction related things, framing. I'd framed a lot of houses. I did build a lot of decks. I mean, I was putting in foundations, like or setting up, putting up batter boards for foundations, and pouring footings, and I mean, you name it. I've done it. I've done it all. I've done some pretty wild stuff. So I grew up with that background, but um, once I decided it came time to go to college, I obviously knew I wanted to go to Clemson. My dad went to Clemson. Most of my family members, I think we've had like 30 family members that went to Clemson, and I didn't want to go anywhere else, and so I went to Clemson. I was a finance major, concentration in real estate, um, and enjoyed my time. Worked through school, but I knew that I did not want to leave when I graduated. I had opportunities outside of Clemson that I could have capitalized on, but I decided to live here, work here, raise my family here, and I haven't regretted it one bit. And there are challenges when you're trying to do business in a small town. You go to Atlanta, Charlotte, those, it's a lot easier to, well, I don't know if it's easier, but it's certain there are a lot of people in those areas, and there are a lot more businesses and probably a lot more opportunities than you would have here in a small town like Clemson. But I just love everything about it. I love being able to go to the football games, and being able to go to baseball games and soccer games, and basketball games, and being able to just drive 3 miles down the road and do that. And then I love the fact that I grew up on Lake Hartwell. Kiwi's the popular lake now. I still love Lake Hartwell. I have an affinity for Lake Hartwell because that's where I grew up. Because it's just a mile down the road for me.
Yeah.
And so I love the lakes. I love that you can go up, be in the mountains in 45 minutes. being Cashers, Highlands. I love those areas, and I just knew that I wanted to do conduct business here and raise my family here. It's a great place to raise a family, and so it's I just when I got out of school, I worked for a little while, did a lot of single family development, and then the recession came, and everything just died. Everything just went dead, and I at the time I was doing development all over the upstate, and then I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to hang my hat on Clemson and the surrounding lakes for right now. And then we'll just see how things go. And that has paid dividends. And so, I focused my attention on Clemson and the surrounding lakes from a sales perspective, from property management, from a construction, from a development. And then of course we've come full circle. I wouldn't wish a recession like that on anybody. It was really tough, but I learned a lot, and I came out a lot stronger. Um, and so come full circle, doing all the things that we're doing with our vertically integrated company, and quite frankly, I've had all the business that I could ever want or need, right here in the Clemson area, and but obviously we're expanding out in other parts of the upstate, like I was doing before. Obviously we're in Anderson, Pickens, Oconee, Greenville counties, and we're looking at opportunities in other parts of the state. But it's been a great ride so far. I learned something new every day, and it's been awesome to be able to develop my skill set, right here in my hometown. Let me turn that back around on you. So you lived in Tampa, which is a really big city. I've heard it's a great place to live, but you chose to come back to Clemson. I know you touched on it a minute ago, but um, what is it about Clemson that excites you, and like why do you want to raise your kids here? Why do you want to be doing the things that you're doing? And then I'm really curious, and I know our audience probably be really curious as to you know why you would move to Clemson when you had all these other, well, you probably have had a lot of opportunities to go coach elsewhere.
Well, number one, Clemson is what I consider home. Growing up in a coach's family, you kind of move around, right? I spent my first 11 years, 12 years of childhood in Tallahassee when my dad was coaching at Florida State, and I spent 5 years at Columbia when my dad was coaching at the other team down there in Columbia.
We
And
try to we
yeah,
try to forget about that.
that's right. It took me five
I do
years
have a question about that
to
though.
find. Okay, go
I
ahead.
do have a question
All right.
about that. So, do you like, obviously your dad coached there, and you have to be respectful of that.
Yeah.
But like when you came to Clemson, did you still have that same level of respect for South Carolina? It's a tricky question, I know.
Yeah, no, people do ask me all the time, like, how was that going from, being a Carolina fan to being, a Clemson fan? And my answer was pretty easy. Like when they fire your dad, if your dad was, let's say, the CEO of Coca-Cola and he gets fired, then you all of a sudden, it's easy to be a Pepsi fan.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, I mean, it's part of being a coach's kid. I mean, you just kind of know whenever. But yeah, we definitely enjoyed our time, the 5 years. I mean, that's where I went to high school. During those years down in Columbia, we still have a lot of friends. Many of our friends down there are Gamecocks, but we definitely, love that we found Clemson after that, because Clemson, I think, just is a better fit for our family overall. But ultimately, why do I consider Clemson home? Well, number one, I met my wife here at Clemson. We met our freshman year. We were both in the same class here at Clemson, and dated all the way through. Her family, which is actually from Batesburg, Leesville, her mom and dad both went to Clemson. Her brother and sister went to Clemson. So she has a very strong Clemson background there as well. But, for many of the same reasons you just shared, I mean, we love living in this area. I really enjoyed my 3 years in Tampa. Obviously, my time at South Florida didn't go the way that, I expected it to go. But as far as living in Tampa, I mean, there's a lot of really good things going on. A lot of great professional sports teams with, the Lightning hockey team, and obviously the Bucks, and the Rays. A lot of great restaurants and all those things. But as far as like long term, we were definitely excited to get back to Clemson. We also have a lot of friends here in this area. I mean, many of the current coaches at Clemson are good friends of ours, and my wife's very close to their wives, and our kids know each other and all those things. So we really wanted to get back and just kind of plug into the Clemson community. Clemson also has a great schools with Clemson Elementary and Edwards Middle School and Daniel High School. So that was a big factor for us wanting to come back. And then knowing that I was going to get into real estate, this is just a great area for that. So, those are kind of the reasons that I, chose my wife and I chose. I mean, honestly, it was like the next day after I got let go at South Florida, I kind of woke up the next morning and, kind of looked at my wife and I said, let's go back home to Clemson. And that was
Yeah.
pretty much it from that point. We started making calls and, I wish that maybe I would have kept our house before we left, but, I was expecting to maybe be gone for longer than 3 years. But we are back in the same neighborhood, just in a different house.
Right. You live close to Dabo. Do you get to
two doors down from Coach Sweeney?
You wave at him when you drive by?
Yeah, I will. Sometimes I'll see him whenever I passing by in the morning or something, and definitely say hello and stay in touch. But yeah, he's definitely leaving early in the mornings and getting home late at night, and so I don't see him as much this time of the year. But yeah, we've got several of the coaches live in the same neighborhood where we are now, and it's good to be able to catch up with them anytime I see them out.
Do you miss it at all? You
Yeah,
miss coaching?
yeah, I get that question a lot. There's definitely things that I miss. I mean, probably the top thing that I miss is just relationship with the players. Whenever you're a coach, you get that great opportunity to be around your players and really see them come in as and really recruit them as their freshman, sophomore in high school, and then be able to be a part of that process of them kind of maturing, and then helping them both on the football field with football, but also academically, socially, spiritually, all these things. Just try to be a mentor. So I definitely miss that part. I miss the camaraderie with the other coaches. I mean, one thing, as coaches, I mean, you're in the same room with each other for about 10 hours a day. And so there's some cool bonds that kind of, that I miss from that. But the overall time commitment, is something that I'm just, not willing to give up right now because of my kids. And I want to be there. I've seen like the press conferences back in the day of like, the retired football coach, and he's like crying and like apologizing to his kids, or NFL coach a lot of times too, like at his retirement press conference or whatever, he's like crying and apologizing to his kids because he wasn't there whenever they were growing up. And like I've never wanted to be that. And Coach Sweeney, out of all coaches, definitely prioritizes for the families being able to, when there are short windows, to be able to be there with your kids. But being able to coach their little league teams and all of that is something that I enjoy. And I'm just kind of taking it one day at a time. And it's kind of like if my life is like this big book, then this is just a chapter where I am right now, and learn kind of never to say never. But right now, I'm really happy and really at peace with what I'm doing currently.
Yeah. So, do you think you would ever get back into coaching at the
Man,
collegiate
you're
level?
going right to it.
Uh,
Oh, that's good. Well, I've learned to, I
Well,
guess,
I get
yeah,
asked that question.
yeah,
It's like, Eric,
yeah,
tell him to quit building houses and go back to coaching.
yeah. I've gotten a few messages on Twitter and Instagram, and it kind of goes with however Clemson's offense is doing in that game, dictates how many messages I get. Um, what I would say, uh, number one, is I've definitely learned to never say never. I mean, I would never have thought, 3 or 4 years ago that I'd be sitting here with you doing a podcast and doing real estate in Clemson and in upstate of South Carolina. So I don't, I'm not going to say never, but one thing I do know, if I do get back into coaching, it would be right here in Clemson, either at Clemson or even potentially at Daniel High School one day. If
Hmm.
my son Hunter, who's 5 years old, if he decides to play football, I'd love to be able to coach his little league teams and all that. And I actually started my career as a high school coach at Ridgeview High School for 2 years, and I was the head coach at Blythewood High School for 2 years. And so if it's not at
You won a
Clemson,
state championship your
yeah,
first year as a head coach.
yeah, at Blythewood High School. That was many moons ago. Yeah, next year will actually be our 20th year anniversary, which is pretty crazy
Well, I think
for that
that's
team.
that's why so many people think you should still be in coaching is because you everywhere you've coached, you've had success. I mean, how many coaches can say they won a state championship
Right.
in high school their first year?
Yeah.
And then you went into college coach, you won 2 national championships.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
pretty wild.
and a big part of that, any coach that's being honest with you, tell you it's all about the players. And I was really fortunate at Blythewood High School. I just had unbelievably talented roster for a first year high school, and really I had a quarterback and receivers. The things that I knew the most about, which was passing game, I kind of had the guys that did that. Then obviously during my time at Clemson, it was like a who's who at quarterback, at receiver, running back. We had some really good offensive lines as well. So I mean, I definitely those are such special memories for me. I mean, sometimes there's this thought in your mind that you don't want to go back and try to like recreate the past.
Yeah.
So, the only way I would go back is if it was kind of the right fit, the right timing for both me personally, and then, the right fit, whether it be at Clemson or at Daniel High School one day as an assistant
Hmm.
coach. You never know. So, I'll leave that door open, but right now I'm definitely at peace doing what I'm doing. I'm enjoying it. I'm being challenged every day, and so we'll just kind of take it day by day.
So is coaching like riding a bike? Do you think? I mean, I know the landscape of college football has changed a lot, even in the last 3 years since you've been out of it. I mean, I've you and I've had discussions about NIL and the transfer portal and all that, and the challenges that come with that. Do you think the longer you're out of it, the harder it will be for you to get back into it, or do you think it's like riding a bike?
Well, I mean, there's definitely schemes change. There's kind of patterns that come within
Oh, and I have a
schemes.
question about that in a
Okay.
second. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, being a coach is about being able to communicate, being able to lead. If you're coaching at the college level, it's about being able to recruit. And so I think there's a lot of kind of core foundational things there that are consistent no matter what. I also think kind of where we are with NIL and shared revenue. I think over the next few years, we're going to get to a better place where there's a little bit more kind of firm framework. Right now, it's still kind of a little bit of the wild, wild west, and things are changing all the times. But I mean, I definitely watch games on Saturday and Sunday, and a lot of times I'm watching it kind of from a coaching perspective, and watching schemes and things that people are doing. But yeah, I mean, that'll definitely, I think it probably depend on how far out it is. But I'm definitely keeping up with things and, just preparing in case, that's something that I chose to do down the road.
Speaking of schemes, offensive schemes, do you think that your offense that you had at Clemson would work at Clemson now?
Oh man. Um, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, schematically, kind of what, Tony and I were running the 5 years that we did it. You're still seeing that today. I mean, I think Gus Malzahn at Florida State right now is kind of running the same offense. Obviously, Tony and I learned a lot from Chad Morris, who was here before us as the OC.
Who
And
was a
yeah, he was.
pupil
Yeah,
of Gus?
Gus
Yeah,
Malzahn. He learned
yeah,
a lot of the stuff from Gus. So
yeah.
it is kind of interesting seeing Gus is doing very well at Florida State early in the season. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, actually one of the plays that Georgia Tech ran on a 2-point play last week in the game was a play that I think we ran here under Chad Morris, and I think
That was a great play.
yeah, I hated to see it be used against us
Hmm.
in that way, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to just the fundamentals of doing things the right way, and you got to be able to protect, and you got to be able to block up front and execute. And so I think the offense that we ran, we're still seeing some of that in all of college football and even in the NFL. So I think there's definitely nuances. The RPO game is definitely there's a lot more RPOs and what people are doing, but it's very cyclical. The defenses kind of catch up to the offense, and then the offense kind of changes something up, and so you're seeing a lot of that. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the players and the guys executing. And we were really fortunate to have kind of a who's who. You can just turn on the TV on Sunday, and you're watching a lot of these guys that I coached during my time here at Clemson, and hopefully we can get some of those guys on the podcast here too, moving forward.
That would be awesome. I'll hold you to that.
All right.
But like going back to the offensive scheme, how do you? I know the current offensive scheme that we have has not been as successful as we would have hoped. Like what? I know you have to be careful in what you say, but like, what do you feel like is the issue with our offense right now?
Well, I mean, I think it's all about
And it's easy to Monday morning
yeah.
quarterback. I
Well,
get
and
that. I know.
I'm definitely not going to sit here and Monday morning quarterback. I'm the fired coach that's at home now selling
Yeah.
real estate, so I'm
Yeah.
not going to get up here and
Yeah.
say that I have all the answers. I mean, I think at the end of the day, number one, there's a premise that's very true. When things are going really well, they're not always as good as they seem, and when they're going bad, they're not always as bad as they seem.
Yeah. I
And
get
I
that.
think the disappointment for all of us, following Clemson, is the expectations going into the season were just extremely high for our team, and part of that is because we have a good group coming back, and so many other teams around the country. The national media can't really guess how good they're going to be because there's so much movement. Where at Clemson, we have a lot of the same guys coming back, so I understand why there was really high expectations. But at the end of the day, it's just really more about execution. And there's, the thing about offense is you got to have all 11 guys doing, the right thing. And so we can, you pull up certain plays in certain situations, and there's one or two guys that maybe didn't do their job to the best of their ability, and the whole play is dead. And then, all of a sudden, now we think our offense isn't any good or all this stuff. And it really just comes down to a little bit of execution. But, I know Coach Sweeney's kind of brought it up a little bit, throughout the start of the season. But I can remember that in 2016, the year that we ended up, winning the national championship there in Tampa to start the season. I mean, we had all these talented guys, very similar to how Clemson's set up now, and we just weren't executing to the best of our ability. And it's frustrating, and it's kind of like a hitter that's in a slump a little bit, right? And like, what do you do to get out of it? I mean, you just kind of keep swinging, and you go back and just trying to work to kind of improve. So, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I think Clemson has a really good coaching staff, very experienced, won a lot of games at Clemson and at other places, and we've had some really talented players. I think it's just kind of getting all that together and being able to mesh. I know, we also have some key guys out, at receiver with Williams. I mean, he's probably our most experienced and talented receiver. I'm looking forward to getting him back. And then I know we've had an offensive lineman out that's a key member to what we're doing. But, I've got a lot of confidence in Coach Sweeney and in the coaches that are in that room and in the players that are in that room that, they're going to get it all kind of figured out and get it meshed up. And, unfortunately, we've kind of used two mulligans, this early in the season. But, back in the day, we were kind of Clemson was at our best when, we kind of everybody was against us and backs were against the wall a little bit. And
That's a
kind of
good point. Yeah.
it creates a little bit more intensity from the guys when they know their backs are against the wall. And you don't want it always to have to kind of be to that point. But that's where we were in 16, and we were frustrated, and we were able to kind of take that frustration out on opponents that we played later in that season after that slow start. And that's really what I expect. I have no doubt that they're going to get it all figured out, and hopefully that's this week against Syracuse.
Yeah, I was looking at some stat the last time, I think it was the last time we played Troy, and it might have been 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago. And the stats were almost identical.
Yeah.
And we won a national championship that year.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, when our backs up against the wall with the two losses, but I do think that LSU's a really good football team. I think Georgia Tech is a really good football team. I would not be surprised if they ran the table the rest of the year. I was looking at their schedule. Their schedule sets up nicely for them to run the table. I mean, they could end up being a top 10 team
Yeah.
before it's all said and done. And our schedule sets up where, I mean, we've got Florida State and South Carolina, but I think there's a good chance we could run the table. All our goals are still out in front of us. We could still win the ACC championship. We could still make it to the playoff. And I mean, I just think it's going to take. I think our defense is good enough. Well,
Yeah.
what do I know? I'm just a real estate guy. I'm just an old developer over here, you know.
Me too.
But but you know, I know we want to try to keep these podcasts down to an hour, and I think we're coming up on an hour. But I am excited. We're going to try to do this maybe every other week, or we may try to catch up and do some little sooner than that. Maybe do once a week for a little while, and then do them every other week. But I know that you and I have had discussions about the people that we could potentially get on the podcast, and I'm really excited about that. And I know with your connections, all those people that you recruited and that were in your in the locker room with you could potentially be on our podcast, and that's really exciting. And I'd love to be able to pick their brains. And then I know a lot of those guys like investing in real estate too, and so it'd be interesting to hear their perspectives on the ones that have retired and what they're doing now, and what they're spending their time doing outside of football. So some of them you mentioned play golf. Maybe we'll get to play a little golf with them. And
yeah, that's right. No, it's been fun watching some of the guys that I was fortunate to coach here now go on and have success, whether it be in the NFL or in business, and then also be talking to them about real estate deals that they're doing, and like you said, some of them are getting into the game of golf and having some good conversations about that. But I think ultimately with this podcast, you know, we want to be able to talk about what's going on in sports. Obviously, Clemson being a main focus where we are, but also talk a little bit about business, real estate. I mean, things that I think a lot of our listeners are interested in. And I'm excited about some of our guests that are coming on. And, you know, I never thought that I would actually be hosting a podcast. I thought, you know, I've been on a guest for a few podcasts in the past, but I think we'll make this fun, and look forward to some of our future episodes.
Well, I'll probably be the least interesting person on the podcast, but I will say I was on Chad Carson's podcast. Yeah. He's got a really good one, and he invited me to be on it.
Former Clemson linebacker.
Former Clemson linebacker. Right. He's doing really well with the Coach Carson stuff, and but he had one. It was construction related, and I'm drawing a blank on the what he titled it, but that thing went viral. And so I do know that people are interested in sports, and we'll be talking a lot about sports, like you said, but we'll also try to find topics that people will want to hear about, and try to mix that in related to real estate and construction development in world.
And I think another thing that people are interested in, sometimes people are looking at, you know, as investors, at what opportunities that they may have. And I know you and I have had some investors come along that we're partnering with. Some of them are Clemson alums.
Yeah.
And so there may be some opportunities for some of our listeners to be able to kind of learn a little bit about what that looks like, and maybe participate in some upcoming projects that we have coming down the road.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So, well, hey, it's been awesome. This is let's just keep this going, and you know, we'll just hopefully just go from one podcast to the next, and continue the conversations that are hopefully interesting to the audience. So,
absolutely. Podcast 1 in the books.
Podcast 1 in the books. All right. This is the first edition of the Coach and the Contractor with Eric Newton and Jeff Scott.